Hey everyone, my name is Daniel Westbrook, and until 6 months ago, I was living what I thought was the American dream in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. I'd like to share my story with you today, not for sympathy, but as a warning about trust and as testimony that justice, though sometimes slow, eventually finds its way. I grew up in a middle-class family in Michigan, worked hard through college at Michigan State, and graduated with a computer science degree. After bouncing between a few startups, I landed a job at Tech Fusion, a growing software company in Portland. Over 7 years, I worked my way up from junior developer to senior software architect, building financial applications that major banks rely on. My colleagues respected me for my work ethic and integrity. I was the guy who stayed late to help others debug their code and volunteered for the difficult projects no one else wanted. Up by 32, I had saved enough for a down payment on a beautiful craftsman-style home in the West Hills, 2,800 square feet, with a view of Mount Hood on clear days. The neighborhood was quiet, full of young professionals and families. I had a good circle of friends, mostly from work and my weekend hiking group. My life was stable, successful, and only missing one thing: someone to share it with. That's where Lisa Chambers comes in. We met at my college friend Mike's wedding 5 years ago. She was the maid of honor, a stunning woman with auburn hair and piercing green eyes that seemed to look right through you. She had this infectious laugh that would make everyone around her smile. Lisa worked as a marketing director at Precision Brands, handling accounts for luxury retailers. She was smart, ambitious, and could command a room with her presence. After meeting at the wedding, we ran into each other again at a charity fundraiser the following week, a coincidence that felt like fate at the time. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown, where we talked until the staff started cleaning up around us. I was captivated by her stories about growing up in California, her travel adventures through Europe, and her ambitions to eventually start her own marketing agency. After dating for a year filled with weekend trips to the coast, dinner, parties with friends, and what I thought was genuine connection, I proposed during a sunset hike at Smith Rock. She said yes immediately, tears in her eyes. We were married 4 months later in a ceremony at the Lan Su Chinese Garden with 75 of our closest friends and family. Lisa moved into my house, adding her sophisticated touch to the decor. Contemporary art replaced my movie posters, plush rugs covered the hardwood floors, and the sparse bachelor furniture was upgraded to pieces that looked like they belonged in a design magazine. I didn't mind. I wanted her to feel at home, and honestly, the place looked better than ever. Lisa loved the finer things in life: designer clothes with labels I couldn't pronounce, weekly salon appointments, expensive dinners at Portland's top restaurants, and lavish vacations to destinations like Bali and the Amalfi Coast. I didn't mind spending on her because I thought we were building our life together. I worked hard, made good money, and seeing her happy made me happy too. She took over managing our joint finances about 6 months into our marriage, claiming her marketing experience made her better with budgeting and investment decisions. I trusted her completely and focused on my career, often working late to secure the promotions that would fund the lifestyle we were building. We talked about having children someday, but Lisa always had reasons to wait. Her career was taking off. We should travel while we could. We needed more financial security. For the first 3 years, our marriage seemed perfect to outsiders. We hosted dinner parties where Lisa would shine as the charismatic hostess. We took enviable vacations, documented meticulously on her Instagram. We were the couple others looked up to: successful, attractive, and seemingly in love. Around 8 months ago, things started feeling off. Small changes at first, so subtle I questioned whether I was imagining them. Lisa began working late more frequently, sometimes not coming home until after 10 p.m., claiming big client presentations or strategy sessions. Her texts became less frequent during the day, often taking hours to respond. I noticed she'd come home smelling of cologne that wasn't mine, a woody, expensive scent I couldn't identify. When I hugged her, she'd sometimes stiffen slightly before relaxing into the embrace. Her phone, which had always been casually left around, was suddenly password protected, and she'd step out of rooms to take calls. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to find her side of the bed empty. I found her in the kitchen, hunched over her phone, typing rapidly. When she noticed me, she quickly locked the screen and claimed she was just responding to a work emergency. There was a glass of wine beside her that hadn't been there when we went to bed. When I asked about these changes, she'd dismiss my concerns with practiced ease. "You're being paranoid, babe," she'd say with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. "The Anderson account is just super demanding right now." Or, "It's just a crazy time at work. It'll calm down after this quarter." I wanted to believe her. Actually, I convinced myself I did believe her. The alternative, that the woman I loved was lying to me, was too painful to contemplate. Our joint credit card bills were getting higher, with charges from expensive restaurants on days she claimed to be working late, boutique hotel charges, explained away as client meeting spaces, and jewelry purchases that I never saw her wear. When I inquired about these expenses, she always had plausible explanations ready. A business dinner here, a gift for her mother there, a corporate retreat somewhere else. Our savings account, which had been steadily growing toward our goal of a vacation property in Bend, had plateaued and then started to decline slightly. Lisa explained this away as increased property taxes, some necessary house repairs, and market fluctuations in our investments. It all sounded reasonable, but something felt wrong in my gut that I started noticing other things too. Lisa had bought several new outfits and lingerie that she never wore around me. Her gym visits became more frequent, and she became more conscious about her appearance, trying new hairstyles and makeup techniques. While these changes weren't suspicious in themselves, combined with everything else, they formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. The turning point came when Lisa planned a girls' weekend in Miami with friends from work. She'd never mentioned these particular friends before, but I didn't question it. She packed carefully, taking several new outfits I hadn't seen before. While she was away, her social media remained surprisingly quiet, unusual for her, as she typically documented every moment of our trips together. During her absence, I was paying bills when I noticed a significant withdrawal from our savings account, $5,000 taken out the day before she left. When I texted her about it, there was a long delay before she responded, claiming it was for an emergency situation with her friend Jenna, who had lost her wallet and needed help covering the hotel and flights. She promised Jenna would pay us back soon. The response seemed rehearsed, and when I called the hotel where she was supposedly staying, they had no record of Elisa Westbrook. I told myself there must be a reasonable explanation. Perhaps the reservation was under a friend's name. When she returned, her tan was minimal for someone who had supposedly spent 3 days at South Beach. Her stories about the trip lacked the specific details and anecdotes that usually peppered her travel tales. When I asked to see photos, she claimed her phone had fallen into the pool on the last day, and she'd lost everything. That night, as she slept beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, finally admitting to myself what I had suspected for weeks. My wife was hiding something significant from me. The question was, what exactly was she hiding, and how bad was it? The definitive discovery came on a rainy Tuesday evening in October. Lisa had texted that she would be working late again, so I ordered takeout and settled in to watch a basketball game. Around 8 p.m., her laptop, which she'd left on the kitchen counter, chimed with an email notification that I had never been the type to snoop through my wife's things. Trust had always been fundamental to our relationship. But something about that moment, perhaps the culmination of months of suspicion, propelled me across the room. The notification was from an email account I didn't recognize, lizak85@gmail.com. Not her usual work or personal address. The preview showed only, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Remember to bring the." The rest was cut off. My heart pounding, I clicked on the notification, expecting to hit a password wall. To my surprise, she was still logged in. What I found shattered my world in an instant. Hundreds of intimate messages between Lisa and Robert Kendall, her boss at Precision Brands. Their affair had been going on for nearly a year, starting with flirtation at a company retreat in Sonoma, progressing to stolen moments in his office, and eventually to regular rendezvous at the Riverfront Hotel downtown. I sat there for what felt like hours, scrolling through message after message, each one driving the knife deeper. They exchanged provocative photos, detailed accounts of their encounters, and cruel jokes at my expense. "Daniel thinks I'm at a client dinner right now," she had written one evening. "If only he knew I was having you for dessert." Robert had responded with a crude joke about me being oblivious, but the betrayal went beyond the physical affair. The messages revealed they were planning to leave the country together after emptying our accounts. Lisa had already diverted over $80,000 from our savings into a separate account. They had discussed relocating to Buenos Aires, where Robert had contacts in the advertising industry. With shaking hands, I navigated to our online banking portal. Using the password stored in our shared password manager, I accessed our accounts and discovered regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize, dating back 6 months. Small amounts at first, $500 here, $1,000 there, growing progressively larger and more frequent that I found receipts for jewelry worth thousands. Weekend getaways to Seattle and Vancouver, expensive hotel stays at the Nines and Sentinel, and first-class plane tickets to Miami, where she had actually gone with Robert, not girlfriends. All purchased with our joint funds, money I had earned through countless late nights and weekends at the office. They even had a shared photo album filled with intimate pictures and videos taken in hotel rooms, and, most disturbingly, in our home, on the couch where we watched movies, in the kitchen where we cooked together, even in our bed. The most painful parts were the discussions about their future together. They imagined a glamorous life abroad, funded partly by my money. Once we're settled, Lisa had written, "We can start the business we've been talking about. Daniel's money will give us a good runway until we're profitable." As I continued digging deeper into their correspondence, I discovered detailed plans for their eventual departure. They had researched neighborhoods in Buenos Aires, focusing on Palermo and Recoleta, the most expensive and exclusive districts. They had even contacted real estate agents about luxury apartments with views of the city. Robert had apparently been taking Spanish lessons in preparation, and Lisa had been researching Argentine business registration procedures. Their timeline was more immediate than I had initially realized. According to their messages, they planned to leave in just 6 weeks, conveniently timed after the annual bonuses at Precision Brands would be distributed. Lisa had already started quietly selling some of her designer items on consignment, converting them to cash that wouldn't leave a trace in our accounts. Even more disturbing were their contingency plans if I discovered their affair before they could leave. "If he finds out," Robert had written, "we'll need to accelerate. You should clean out the investment account immediately and meet me at the airport. We can sort out the rest once we're safely away." Lisa had responded, "He won't find out. Daniel trusts me completely. He's so focused on work that he barely notices when I'm gone for hours." The extent of their betrayal went beyond money and infidelity. I found a document where Lisa had listed all my passwords, not just the ones she legitimately had access to, but others she had clearly obtained through deception or by watching me enter them. She had access to everything: my personal email, work accounts, even my conversations with friends and family. Even more hurtful were the psychological assessments of me they shared, analyzing my weaknesses and blind spots like predators studying prey. "Daniel always believes the best in people," Lisa had written. "It's his biggest weakness. If I act emotional and apologetic, he forgives almost anything." Robert had replied, "That's perfect. Use that if he ever gets suspicious." They had discussed how my tendency to avoid conflict made me an ideal target. They had even calculated precisely how much they could drain from our accounts over time without triggering my suspicion, gradually increasing the amounts as they got closer to their departure date. The methodical nature of their planning indicated this wasn't just an affair that had gotten out of hand. It was a calculated scheme to exploit my trust and steal my life savings, with zero regard for the devastation it would cause me emotionally or financially. As midnight approached, I found myself staring at photos of them together, smiling at the camera with the confidence of people who believed they were untouchable. In one particularly painful image, they were posing at a beachside restaurant in Miami. During the trip Lisa had claimed was with girlfriends, Robert's arm casually draped around her shoulders, both of them tanned and laughing. By 2 a.m. I had copied everything incriminating to an external hard drive and carefully returned her laptop exactly as I'd found it. I went upstairs to our bedroom where Lisa was sound asleep, completely unaware that her carefully constructed house of lies had just collapsed. I stood in the doorway watching her sleep peacefully for a long moment, feeling a strange sense of calm settling over me. I slept in the guest room that night, claiming a headache when Lisa questioned me in the morning. As she kissed me goodbye before leaving for work, I marveled at her ability to compartmentalize, to betray me so completely while maintaining the facade of a loving wife. That was the moment I knew I couldn't simply confront her with an emotional outburst. This level of deception required a more calculated response that I called in sick to work that day, spending hours researching Oregon divorce laws regarding infidelity and financial fraud. I learned that while Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, evidence of marital misconduct could significantly impact the division of assets, especially in cases involving financial fraud. By evening, I had composed myself enough to greet Lisa when she returned home, maintaining my own facade now. We ate dinner together while she told elaborate lies about a challenging client meeting that had never occurred. I had confirmed through my research that she had actually been at the Riverfront Hotel with Robert during those hours that I watched. Her confidently spinning fiction across the dinner table, something inside me hardened into resolve. This wasn't just about divorce anymore. It was about justice. Lisa and Robert had meticulously planned to destroy my life without a second thought. Now I would ensure they faced consequences for every aspect of their betrayal that I didn't confront her immediately. Some primal self-preservation instinct kept me from revealing what I knew. Instead, I took photos of everything with my phone, emailed myself the most incriminating conversations, and downloaded their entire message history. I took screenshots of the unauthorized bank transfers and documented exactly how much she had stolen from me. I carefully returned everything to exactly how I found it, closed her laptop, and went upstairs to the guest room. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing between disbelief, devastating heartbreak, and cold fury. By morning, the shock had crystallized into something harder: resolve. Lisa Westbrook and Robert Kindle had no idea what was coming. I called in sick to work the next day, something I rarely did. After Lisa left for the office, I contacted Martin Geller, an attorney specializing in divorce cases involving infidelity and financial misconduct. His firm had a reputation for being thorough and discreet, exactly what I needed. That I laid out everything I had discovered, showing him the evidence I collected. Martin listened carefully, occasionally taking notes, his expression growing increasingly grave. After I finished, he leaned forward across his desk. "Daniel, what you've shown me gives us a strong case for an at-fault divorce with clear evidence of adultery and financial fraud," he explained. "But before we file anything, we need to gather more comprehensive evidence and strategically position your finances. If they're planning to empty accounts soon, we need to act quickly but intelligently." He advised me to gather as much evidence as possible before making any moves. We needed to document the affair and the financial theft meticulously. He also warned me against confronting Lisa or doing anything that could alert her to my knowledge. "The element of surprise is your greatest advantage right now," Martin said. "The moment she realizes you know, she'll accelerate whatever plans they have and potentially destroy evidence." Over the next month, I became the perfect husband on the surface. I acted completely normal around Lisa, even increasing my affectionate gestures, complimenting her outfits, bringing home flowers, suggesting date nights. All the while, I was methodically building my case against her. I purchased a small voice-activated recorder which I placed in her car, legal in our state with one-party consent for recordings. I installed a keylogger on our home computer that captured her passwords and all online activity. I recovered deleted texts from our cloud backup that she didn't realize still stored everything. I hired Calvin Ross, a private investigator recommended by Martin, who provided photographic evidence of their meetings. Calvin followed them to restaurants, hotels, and even documented a weekend trip to a coastal resort that Lisa had told me was a marketing conference. I contacted our bank and obtained records of all the unauthorized transfers Lisa had made, establishing a clear pattern of financial deception. I also discovered she had opened a separate credit card in my name without my knowledge, racking up nearly $30,000 in debt on luxury purchases. Meanwhile, I began moving my personal assets to secure accounts she couldn't access. I consulted with a financial advisor who helped me protect my 401k and investment portfolio. I updated my will, removed her as a beneficiary from my life insurance, and prepared a detailed record of all our marital assets, particularly noting what I had brought into the marriage. I started keeping a daily journal documenting Lisa's comings and goings, her explanations for late nights, and any discrepancies I noticed. This would serve both as evidence and as a way for me to process the ongoing betrayal without confronting her. but I also began quietly reaching out to friends and family I had neglected during my marriage. Lisa had subtly isolated me from many of my close relationships, claiming certain friends were bad influences or finding reasons to skip family gatherings. I reconnected with my college roommate, my brother in Seattle, and several colleagues, building a support network I would need in the coming months. Calvin's investigation yielded even more damning evidence than I had initially found. His surveillance captured Lisa and Robert meeting at the Riverfront Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, precisely the days Lisa claimed to have recurring client meetings. The investigator obtained footage of them checking in together, with Robert paying cash to avoid leaving a paper trail. Through a contact at Precision Brands, Calvin confirmed that no client meetings were scheduled during those times, and Lisa had blocked her calendar with vague entries like external strategy session or field research. The deception at her workplace was as thorough as it was at home. Calvin also documented a weekend trip to Cannon Beach that Lisa had told me was a company brainstorming retreat. In reality, she and Robert had stayed at an exclusive oceanfront cottage, charging the $3,200 bill to the unauthorized credit card in my name. Photos showed them walking on the beach, dining at expensive restaurants, and shopping for art, all while I worked overtime on a critical project, believing my wife was advancing her career. More disturbing discoveries came from the keylogger I had installed. I learned that Lisa had created a separate email account specifically for communications with various banks and financial institutions. She had been systematically researching how to transfer large sums internationally without triggering regulatory flags. She had even consulted with a financial advisor about converting assets to cryptocurrency, a method notoriously difficult to trace once the funds leave conventional banking systems. The voice recordings from her car revealed phone conversations with Robert planning their escape in detail. "We need to be careful about how much we take at once," she had said during one call. "Daniel checks the main accounts occasionally, but he never looks at the statements for the investment portfolio. I can liquidate that gradually over the next month." Robert had responded, "What about the house? Can you get him to refinance before we leave? We could use that cash too." Lisa had laughed. "He trusts me completely with the finances. I could probably get him to sign anything if I tell him it's a better interest rate." The casual cruelty with which they discussed exploiting my trust was perhaps the most painful part of the recordings. They spoke about me as if I were merely an obstacle to overcome, not a human being whose life they were planning to destroy. Working with Martin, I developed a comprehensive strategy to protect myself financially while building the strongest possible legal case. He connected me with forensic accountants who traced exactly where my stolen money had gone, primarily to a hidden account Lisa had established at a different bank using a slight variation of her name to avoid detection. That I learned that Lisa had been engaging in financial infidelity long before the actual affair began. For over 2 years, she had been siphoning small amounts from our accounts, creating a substantial nest egg I knew nothing about. The planned escape to Buenos Aires wasn't a recent development. It had been in the works for years, with Robert entering the picture later as both romantic partner and accomplice. As I fortified my legal position, I also carefully documented the psychological impact of Lisa's betrayal. My therapist, Dr. Monica Sharma, helped me process the emotional trauma while also providing professional documentation of the psychological effects of such profound deception. This would prove valuable during divorce proceedings to illustrate the full extent of damage beyond mere financial theft. The most challenging aspect of this preparation phase was maintaining normalcy at home. Every evening, I would return to share dinner with a woman who was actively planning to destroy me. Every night, I would lie beside someone who had violated every aspect of trust in our relationship. The psychological toll was immense, but I channeled that pain into methodical preparation. By week 3 of my investigation, I had amassed a comprehensive dossier documenting every aspect of their affair and financial misconduct. The evidence included 137 pages of text messages and emails between Lisa and Robert, 43 photographs of them together in various locations, 12 hotel receipts for rooms booked under Robert's name on days Lisa claimed to be working bank records showing 28 separate unauthorized transfers totaling $83,750 credit card statements, showing $27,890 in charges for purchases I never approved, 16 audio recordings of their phone conversations discussing plans to leave the country with my money, sworn statements from the private investigator documenting their meetings, expert analysis from forensic accountants tracking the movement of stolen funds simultaneously. I secured my remaining assets. I opened new accounts at a different bank Lisa had no relationship with. I changed the passwords to all my important accounts, using complex combinations she couldn't guess. I secured my critical documents, birth certificate, passport, investment records, in a safe deposit box she couldn't access that I consulted with my company's HR department about removing Lisa as a beneficiary from my work benefits without raising suspicions. The HR director, after hearing a carefully edited version of my situation, helped me make changes under the guise of a company-wide benefits review, ensuring Lisa wouldn't receive any notification. Throughout this process, I maintained meticulous records of every action I took, ensuring everything was legal and properly documented. Martin emphasized repeatedly that my case depended not just on having evidence of Lisa's misconduct, but on ensuring my own actions were unimpeachable. That in the final week before implementation, Martin and I reviewed the complete strategy. We outlined precise timing for each phase: when to secure remaining assets, when to file divorce papers, when to confront Lisa, and when to implement what Martin called the social consequences phase. Every detail was carefully orchestrated for maximum effect and legal protection. The night before we were set to begin, I met with my core support team, my brother Ryan, my oldest friend Michael, and my therapist Dr. Sharma. They would provide the emotional ballast I would need in the turbulent weeks ahead. We met at a restaurant Lisa would never visit, and I shared the outline of what was about to happen. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" Ryan asked. "It's not too late to just file for divorce and walk away." I considered his question carefully before answering. "This isn't about revenge," I explained. "It's about justice. They didn't just plan to leave me. They planned to destroy me financially and emotionally without a second thought. They need to face consequences proportionate to what they intended to do." Dr. Sharma nodded slowly. "Just remember what we discussed about holding on to anger. Implement your plan, but don't let it consume you. The ultimate goal is your healing and future happiness." I spent that night in our guest room again, telling Lisa I was fighting a cold and didn't want to keep her awake with my coughing. As I lay awake listening to the rain against the windows, I felt strangely calm. After weeks of living a double life, pretending everything was normal while gathering evidence, I was finally ready to act. Each night, as I lay next to the woman who was systematically betraying me, I refined my plan. This wasn't just about divorce, it was about justice. Lisa and Robert had not only violated my trust, but had actively plotted to destroy my financial future while mocking me behind my back. Their arrogance in thinking I was too blind or stupid to discover their scheme fueled my determination. By the end of the month, I had assembled an extensive dossier documenting every aspect of their affair and financial misconduct. Martin was impressed with the thorough evidence and began preparing the divorce filing. But we agreed not to submit it immediately. Timing would be crucial for the next phase of my plan. The social phase of my plan began with an anonymous email account created through a VPN. I wanted to ensure that what was about to happen couldn't be traced back to me directly. From this account, I created a detailed dossier of Robert and Lisa's affair, including time-stamped photos, location data, financial records, and particularly damning excerpts from their messages that I didn't immediately expose them broadly. That would have been too obvious and might have undermined my legal strategy. Instead, I started with a surgical approach aimed at Robert. Robert Kindle was a rising star at Precision Brands, known for his aggressive marketing campaigns and commanding presence. What most people didn't know was that he had a wife of 15 years named Claire and two teenage daughters who attended an exclusive private school. Robert had carefully cultivated an image as a devoted family man. Even serving on the board of his church, I sent carefully selected evidence of his affair with Lisa to Claire Kindle via email. Nothing overly graphic, but enough to leave no doubt about what was happening. Photos of them entering hotels together, receipts for jewelry Robert had bought Lisa using the joint credit card he shared with Claire, and screenshots of messages discussing their future plans that I made sure the information couldn't be traced back to me, presenting it as coming from a concerned colleague at Precision Brands. Within days, the effects became visible. Robert missed 2 days of work. When he returned, according to a friend who worked at the company, he looked haggard and distracted. Claire had confronted him immediately, and their marriage imploded overnight. She threw him out of their Lake Oswego home and retained a high-profile divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics. Reports from mutual connections indicated she was pursuing full custody of their daughters and half of his substantial assets, including stock options in the company. For Lisa's part, I employed a different strategy. She had been put in charge of her company's annual charity gala, a black-tie event attended by the city's business elite and major clients. It was a prestigious assignment and a big deal for her career advancement. She had been working on it for months, often using it as an excuse for late nights at the office. The night before the event, I anonymously sent evidence of the affair to several key figures at Precision Brands: the CEO, the head of HR, and 2 board members known for their conservative values. The package included proof that company resources had been misused to conduct the affair, including expense reports showing Lisa and Robert had charged romantic dinners to client accounts. That I also included evidence that they had been planning to establish a competing agency using proprietary client information from Precision Brands, a clear violation of their employment contracts and potentially illegal. The timing was deliberate, too late for them to cancel the gala, but creating maximum chaos behind the scenes. Through my connections, I learned that Lisa and Robert were called into emergency meetings with HR and legal counsel hours before the event was set to begin. They were required to still attend the gala to maintain appearances, but were closely monitored throughout the evening. Meanwhile, I arranged for some of the damning information, specifically about the misused client funds, to reach the ears of several major clients who would be attending the gala. Nothing direct, just carefully placed rumors through trusted industry contacts who owed me favors. The gala itself was apparently a disaster for both of them. Lisa, who had planned to use the event as a showcase for her talents, was instead sidelined and closely watched by company executives. Several clients requested private meetings with the CEO, expressing concerns about account management. Robert, already reeling from his marital collapse, was observed drinking heavily and making a scene that required intervention from security. My strategy for the social reckoning went beyond simply exposing their affair. I wanted to systematically dismantle the carefully constructed professional and social identities they had built, just as they had planned to dismantle my life. This required a multi-layered approach targeting different spheres of their lives. With precisely calibrated information for Robert's professional collapse, I went deeper than just exposing the affair. Through the keylogger, I had discovered that he had been inflating campaign metrics for several major clients, claiming success rates far beyond what the actual data showed. I compiled evidence of this systematic deception, including before and after versions of reports where numbers had been altered, and internal messages where he instructed team members to massage the data. This information was sent anonymously to Precision Brands' compliance officer with copies to the CFO and the head of the audit committee. I included a detailed timeline showing this wasn't a one-time error, but a pattern of deliberate misrepresentation spanning multiple campaigns and clients. The email suggested that this behavior constituted potential securities fraud since Precision Brands was a publicly traded company whose stock price was influenced by client success metrics. The response was swift. Within 2 days, internal auditors were reviewing all of Robert's accounts and campaigns. His executive assistant was questioned extensively about reporting procedures, and his team members were interviewed individually about data handling practices. The investigation created a ripple of uncertainty throughout the company, with Robert at the epicenter. For Lisa's professional network, I employed a different tactic. She had built her reputation in Portland's marketing community as a mentor to young female professionals, often speaking at industry events about women supporting women in business. Through my investigation, I had uncovered messages between Lisa and Robert mocking several of these mints, with Lisa describing them as desperate climbers she was using to enhance her own reputation. One particularly cruel exchange involved Lisa laughing about a young graphic designer who had confided financial struggles to her, seeking career advice. She can barely afford rent, but she keeps buying me coffee hoping I'll throw her a bone. Lisa had written to Robert. I'll string her along until after the Peterson campaign, then drop her. I created separate packages of these conversations for 3 of her most prominent mints, along with evidence showing Lisa had taken credit for their work on several occasions. I sent these anonymously, positioned as coming from someone concerned about how they were being used. The impact reverberated through Lisa's carefully cultivated professional network as these young women, feeling betrayed and manipulated, shared their experiences with colleagues. For Robert's social standing in Lake Oswego, I targeted his church community, where he served as a finance committee member and had positioned himself as a pillar of moral virtue. I anonymously provided the pastor with evidence of not just the affair, but financial improprieties in Robert's personal life, specifically how he had manipulated expense accounts and misused company funds. The message emphasized that while personal failings deserve compassion, the congregation should be aware of potential financial mismanagement given Robert's role overseeing church donations. Within weeks, Robert was quietly removed from the finance committee and began receiving fewer invitations to social events within that community. For Lisa's social circle, I focused on the mother's charity group she had joined 6 months earlier, ostensibly to network with affluent women, but primarily to access their husbands as potential clients. Through their private Facebook group, which I had access to through the keylogger, I had collected messages where Lisa mocked these women's volunteer efforts as playing charity, while describing their fundraising events as opportunities to target their husbands' wallets. I anonymously sent screenshots of these messages to the group's organizer, a respected philanthropist whose husband ran a major sportswear company. The revelation that Lisa had been using their charitable efforts as business prospecting opportunities while denigrating their sincerity spread quickly through the tight-knit group. She was removed from their upcoming charity auction committee and effectively blacklisted from similar organizations throughout Portland. The most devastating aspect of the social reckoning came through carefully orchestrated timing. Each revelation was spaced to create maximum impact, with new information emerging just as they might be beginning to recover from the previous blow. This created a cascade effect where they had no opportunity to regain footing before the next crisis hit. For instance, just as Robert was negotiating a separation agreement with Claire, the information about his financial misreporting reached Precision Brands board. As Lisa was attempting to salvage relationships with key clients after the gala disaster, her mints began pulling away and sharing their negative experiences. When Robert tried to find comfort in his church community, he discovered his standing there had also been compromised. Through mutual connections, I heard that Robert and Lisa had begun to suspect each other of leaking information, creating tension in their relationship just when they most needed to present a united front. The strain of facing simultaneous personal, professional, and social crises was taking a visible toll on both of them. 3 days after the gala, both Lisa and Robert were terminated from Precision Brands for ethical violations and breach of fiduciary responsibility. The company initiated an audit of all accounts they had managed and issued a press release distancing themselves from the pair. Their professional reputations in Portland's tight-knit marketing community were effectively destroyed overnight. Lisa came home that day in tears, telling me she had been unjustly fired due to office politics and a jealous colleague who had sabotaged her. She claimed Robert had been targeted as well, and they were considering legal action against the company. I listened sympathetically, asking appropriate questions while expressing outrage on her behalf. Inside, I watched the first piece of my revenge fall perfectly into place, but the social reckoning wasn't complete. I had one more card to play. Lisa and Robert were part of a social circle that included other marketing executives, creative directors, and their spouses. They hosted dinner parties, attended gallery openings, and considered themselves part of Portland's creative elite. Through my research, I discovered that this social circle had planned an exclusive weekend retreat at Sunriver Resort, a luxury destination in Central Oregon. Lisa had been looking forward to it for months, seeing it as a networking opportunity and a chance to maintain appearances despite her recent termination. She told me she was going with girlfriends to decompress after the work stress. 2 days before the retreat, I anonymously sent a comprehensive dossier to every couple attending the getaway. The package contained irrefutable evidence of Lisa and Robert's affair, their financial misdeeds, and their contemptuous messages about members of the group. I included screenshots where they had mocked one couple's financial struggles, ridiculed another's parenting choices, and strategized how to use the group's connections for their own advancement. The timing was deliberate. Too late for Lisa to discover the exposure before arriving at the resort, but early enough for everyone else to have absorbed the information. When she arrived, expecting comfort and solidarity from friends, she instead walked into a room of people who had just discovered her betrayal and duplicity. That I later heard through mutual connections that Lisa was confronted by the entire group in a devastating scene. Several women, previously close friends, displayed screenshots of messages where Lisa had disparaged them. Others revealed how she had attempted to leverage their husbands' professional positions. By midnight, Lisa had been asked to leave the resort, finding herself completely isolated from the social circle she had cultivated for years. While Lisa was away at the retreat, I implemented the legal phase of my plan. Martin filed the divorce papers, including all evidence of Lisa's affair and financial fraud. Simultaneously, we secured court orders freezing the accounts where she had transferred my money and preventing further dissipation of marital assets. When Lisa returned from the disastrous retreat, she found divorce papers on the kitchen counter, along with printed copies of her messages with Robert and bank statements highlighting every unauthorized transfer she had made. Beside these documents was a letter from my attorney explaining that criminal charges for financial fraud were being considered, and a locksmith changing the locks on our front door that I had arranged to be present with my attorney when she arrived, wanting to witness the moment when she realized everything had collapsed. As she walked through the door and saw the documents spread across the counter, her face went through a rapid succession of emotions: confusion, shock, panic, and finally defeat. How? How did you find out? She stammered, her composure completely shattered. You underestimated me, I replied calmly. You thought I was too trusting, too oblivious to notice what was happening right under my nose. That was your mistake. Lisa attempted to salvage the situation, cycling through several strategies in rapid succession: denial, minimization, blame shifting, and finally tearful pleas for forgiveness. When none of these worked, she grew angry, threatening to fight me for every penny in court and ruin my reputation. That would be ill-advised, Martin interjected, opening a folder of additional evidence we hadn't yet revealed. We have documented every unauthorized transfer, every credit card charge, every message planning your departure with stolen funds. If you choose to fight this, we are prepared to pursue criminal charges for wire fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. The statute of limitations on these crimes is several years, so even if you flee the country, these charges will follow you. The color drained from Lisa's face as she realized the extent of the evidence against her. Her eyes darted around, perhaps looking for escape or inspiration, finding neither. Finally, her shoulders slumped in defeat. What do you want? She asked. Quietly. I want everything you took from me returned, with interest, I stated firmly. I want a clean break with no further contact. And I want you to sign a settlement agreement today that acknowledges your misconduct and waives any claim to my assets or future earnings. Martin pushed forward a document we had prepared in advance, a settlement agreement heavily weighted in my favor, but still legally sound. It required Lisa to return all stolen funds, surrender any claim to our house and investment accounts, and accept full responsibility for the credit card debt she had accumulated in my name. If you sign this now, Martin explained, we won't pursue criminal charges. You can walk away and attempt to rebuild your life elsewhere. If you refuse, we file these reports with the police today, and you'll likely face significant legal consequences. Lisa hesitated for a long moment, perhaps calculating her options and finding them severely limited. With a trembling hand, she finally signed the document, barely maintaining her composure. I did love you once, she said quietly as she gathered her purse to leave. It wasn't all a lie. That might be the biggest lie of all, I responded, feeling nothing but a cold detachment. You never loved me. You loved what I could provide. There's a difference. As Lisa walked out the door for the final time, I felt no triumph or satisfaction, only a profound sense of closure. The woman I had married, or rather the person I thought she was, had never existed. The real Lisa, calculating, manipulative, and self-serving, was now exposed, her carefully constructed facade shattered beyond repair. After she left, Robert tried repeatedly to contact me, alternating between threats and pleas for mercy. My attorney handled all communications, making it clear that any harassment would result in immediate legal action. Eventually, the messages stopped. Within days of the confrontation, the professional and social fallout for Lisa and Robert accelerated. Precision Brands issued a press release announcing an internal audit of all accounts they had managed, effectively signaling to the industry that their work couldn't be trusted. Former clients began distancing themselves, some publicly severing ties with projects Lisa and Robert had touched. Through my network, I learned that Robert's wife Claire had secured a highly favorable divorce settlement, gaining primary custody of their children and a significant portion of his assets. His reputation in Lake Oswego was in tatters, with rumors of financial impropriety following him throughout the community. He eventually moved to Seattle, taking a position several levels below his previous role at a much smaller agency. Lisa initially stayed with a friend in Portland, but found herself increasingly isolated as the full extent of her betrayal became known throughout our social circles. After several weeks, she also left the city, reportedly moving to Phoenix where her sister lived. She attempted to establish herself in the marketing industry there, but struggled to find comparable opportunities given her abrupt departure from Precision Brands and lack of references. The financial consequences for both of them were severe. Through our settlement, Lisa was required to return all funds she had diverted, totaling nearly $85,000. She also assumed responsibility for the credit card debt she had accumulated in my name. Robert, facing his own costly divorce and diminished income, was unable to provide the lifestyle she had anticipated in their planned escape. Their relationship, built on mutual deception and fantasy, collapsed under the weight of reality. According to mutual connections, they briefly attempted to stay together after being fired but split acrimoniously within weeks, each blaming the other for their downfall. The dream of a new life together in Buenos Aires evaporated in the face of legal troubles, financial constraints, and shattered trust. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life. The divorce was finalized 4 months after filing, with the court upholding our settlement agreement in full. I retained our house, my retirement accounts, and received full restitution for the stolen funds. The judge, impressed by the evidence of financial fraud, issued a strong ruling condemning Lisa's actions. I took 3 weeks off work to process everything, spending time with family in Michigan and hiking alone in the mountains of Washington. When I returned to Tech Fusion, I shared a simplified version of events with my boss and close colleagues, finding unexpected support and understanding. My work performance, initially affected by the emotional turmoil, gradually returned to previous levels and eventually surpassed them as I channeled my energy into professional growth. Financially, I recovered almost everything Lisa had taken and implemented stronger protections for my assets. I worked with a financial advisor to create a more secure framework for my investments and developed a long-term plan focused on rebuilding wealth and stability. The experience made me more cautious, but also more knowledgeable about managing my finances independently. Emotionally, the recovery took longer. I continued seeing Dr. Sharma weekly, working through the trauma of betrayal and learning to trust again. The process wasn't linear. I experienced waves of anger, grief, and, occasionally, debilitating self-doubt about my judgment. But gradually, these episodes became less frequent and less intense. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I sold our house, too large for one person and filled with memories I preferred not to revisit. I purchased a smaller place in a different neighborhood, decorating it entirely to my own tastes for the first time in years. The new space became a physical manifestation of my fresh start. Socially, I rebuilt connections with friends I had neglected during my marriage and formed new relationships through hiking groups, photography classes, and volunteer work. I was cautious about dating again, but eventually met Elena, a geology professor who had also experienced betrayal in her previous relationship. Our shared experiences created a foundation of empathy and understanding that developed into a genuine connection. Based on honesty and mutual respect, 2 years have passed since that rainy October night when I discovered Lisa's betrayal. The woman who once shared my bed and my name is now a distant memory, a cautionary tale rather than an active presence in my life. The last I heard, she was working for a small agency in Arizona, her career permanently diminished from its former trajectory. Robert Kindle never recovered professionally. His reputation in the industry was irreparably damaged by the fraud allegations and ethical violations. According to Mutual Connections, he eventually left marketing altogether, taking a sales position at a car dealership in Tacoma.as for me. I've rebuilt my life piece by piece. The house in the West Hills sold for a significant profit, allowing me to purchase a modern condo downtown with views of the Willamette River and Mount Hood beyond. I've been promoted twice at Tech Fusion, now leading a team developing financial security applications. Ironic, given my personal experience with financial betrayal. Elena and I have been dating for 14 months. We're taking things slowly, building a foundation of trust and transparency. She knows my full story and understands my occasional moments of doubt or caution. We recently took our first vacation together to the San Juan Islands, a week of hiking, kayaking, and honest conversations about our pasts and possible future. The friends and family who supported me through the darkest period remain central to my life. My brother Ryan visits regularly from Seattle, and I've strengthened bonds with colleagues who stood by me when rumors swirled about my marriage's dramatic end. My parents, who always had reservations about Lisa that they politely kept to themselves, have welcomed Elena warmly into the family. Sometimes people ask if I regret the methodical way I handled Lisa's betrayal, if exposing her so comprehensively was excessive or vindictive. I don't see it that way. What I did wasn't about revenge, but consequences. Lisa and Robert had planned to destroy my life without remorse or hesitation. They weren't simply leaving me. They were plotting to empty my accounts, steal my assets, and leave me financially and emotionally devastated while they built a new life with my money. The comprehensive nature of my response wasn't about causing pain, but ensuring justice. Had I confronted Lisa immediately upon discovering her betrayal, she would have accelerated their plans, potentially fleeing with whatever assets she could grab. The careful documentation and strategic timing allowed me to protect myself financially and legally while ensuring they faced appropriate consequences for their actions. Dr. Sharma helped me understand that my approach was actually healthy, channeling the trauma and betrayal into productive action rather than destructive behavior. I never harassed them, never threatened violence, never acted illegally. I simply ensured that the truth was known to those who needed to know it, and that legal remedies were pursued for the financial fraud. There are still difficult days. Occasionally, I'll wake from dreams where Lisa is still beside me, the betrayal, undiscovered, and feel a momentary confusion that quickly gives way to relief. Trust doesn't come as easily as it once did, and I'm more vigilant about protecting myself financially and emotionally. But these are small prices to pay for the wisdom gained. If there's a lesson in my experience, it's about the importance of trust, but also verification. Blind faith, even in those closest to us, can leave us vulnerable to exploitation. Healthy relationships thrive on transparency and mutual respect, not unquestioning trust. I check my financial accounts regularly now, maintain independent relationships with friends and family, and never surrender my autonomy completely, not out of paranoia, but prudence. That I also learned about my own resilience, that I could face devastating betrayal and emerge stronger, wiser, and ultimately happier. The life I'm building now is more authentic than the one I shared with Lisa, based on genuine connections rather than facades and manipulation. Last month, I received an unexpected letter from Lisa, the first direct contact since our divorce. She expressed remorse for her actions, claiming she had undergone therapy and recognized the harm she had caused. She asked for forgiveness, not reconciliation, acknowledging that what she had broken could never be repaired. That I read the letter twice, searching for manipulation or hidden motives, finding none that were obvious. After careful consideration, I wrote a brief reply, stating that while I appreciated her accountability, forgiveness was a process, not a declaration. I wished her well in her continued growth and gently suggested that true redemption comes through how we live after our mistakes, not through absolution from those we've harmed. Whether her remorse was genuine or another calculated move doesn't particularly matter to me now. My well-being no longer depends on Lisa's character or choices. The power she once held over my happiness is gone, dispersed like morning fog under the strengthening sun of self-knowledge and renewed purpose. If you find yourself facing betrayal of this magnitude, remember this: surviving it is just the beginning. With time, effort, and the right support, you can do more than simply endure. You can transform the experience into a foundation for a more authentic and fulfilling life. The people who attempt to destroy us often, unwittingly, provide the catalyst for our greatest growth. Tonight, as I finish writing this account, Elena is coming over for dinner. We're planning a weekend hiking trip to Mount Rainier next month. My team at work is finalizing a security application that could transform how small businesses protect themselves from financial fraud. And yesterday, I submitted my application for a master's program in cybersecurity, a new challenge I'm eager to embrace. The life Lisa and Robert planned to steal from me continues, transformed but undiminished. That, perhaps, is the most satisfying revenge of all. Not what happened to them, but what didn't happen to me. I didn't collapse. I didn't become bitter or paralyzed by mistrust. I rebuilt, recovered, and ultimately rediscovered joy. And that, more than any calculated exposure or legal consequence, is what true justice looks like. That if you found this story compelling, please subscribe to our channel for more real-life accounts of betrayal and its consequences. Remember, these stories are shared not to promote vengeance, but to illustrate the human capacity for resilience in the face of profound betrayal. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better.